Well, it's happy Friday here in Sydney, and happy Thursday to you there in Minnesota. G'day, Ed. How are you, mate?
G'day, Rob. How you doing, buddy? You awake yet?
Yeah, I'm absolutely awake. I've got I went straight down the rabbit hole as soon as I got out of bed this morning. I got dressed, I brushed my teeth, and I sat down at my computer here, and I'm reading the news, and I'm like, all right, here we go. What have we got? And then I went all the way down the rabbit hole. So I've just literally just come out of it. And I got some great stuff to share here today. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Unspoken Truth. My name's Robert Bruss, and I'm joined by my co-host in Minnesota, Ed Anderson. Here on this show, we talk about things that are going on in the mainstream, but we pull back the curtain and look behind the curtain, behind the narrative, and see what's really going on. And you might be wondering, why on earth does this even matter? Why do I care? Well, this stuff really matters to you because our economy and our world is in a state of flux, and we want you to be prepared and not be a victim of the craziness and the crazy policies that are out there. If this is your first time here at The Unspoken Truth, welcome. We're also available as a podcast. Each day when we finish recording, I pull down the file, I upload it into Spotify, it gets pulled into Apple, and it can be found a couple of hours later wherever you find all your podcasts. So pop open your favorite podcasting app and search for The Unspoken Truth, and you can join us over there as well. And don't forget to like and subscribe here on the YouTube channel. Hop on over to Twitter, follow us there, and we're also on Telegram, where I share a whole bunch of naughty R-rated content that can't be shown here on YouTube. So if you want to see some more stuff behind the scenes of the war in Ukraine, I've got a lot of connections in my Telegram, and I share quite a bit of footage over there, and we talk about some other things there as well, which is quite good. But I want to start off by saying welcome to the show. Thank you for all of your support. Make sure you pop on over to the channel and have a checkers of what we've got there. There's a lot of content, a lot of videos. I think we're nudging 160 videos today over just a 3-week period, which is not very long at all. And it's all happening for you and me, Ed. We nudged 20,000 views just yesterday. So that's really exciting. I'm looking forward to having 20,000 views of video as we move forward. But this has been a brute force attack on YouTube with the content creation and putting everything out there. So it's very exciting. Here on today's show, I'm going to show you exactly how the Australian government will censor you. If you're an Aussie and you're tuning into this, I'll show you exactly what the Australian government does to censor you, and I'll show you how these ratbags try and stay at arm's length and pretend like nothing is wrong. You'll hear them say, we are not the arbiters of truth, and it's almost Orwellian and Stasi-like when these awful grey bureaucrats think that they're doing nothing wrong but keeping you safe. And all they're doing is scaring you into compliance to get you to do what it is that they want you to do. These people are just God awful. We didn't elect them, and their behaviour is abhorrent to me. And when I look at it, I see them thinking that there's nothing wrong with what they're doing. They think there's absolutely nothing wrong with what they're doing. So I'm going to show you something that might get your blood going a little bit this morning, and I'll show you exactly how the Australian government is censoring the population while staying at arm's length from it, pretending like there's nothing that they're doing that is wrong. And I'm going to show you that video, and Ed and I are going to do a reaction to it. So I'm going to play the video a little bit. So if you're listening to this as a podcast, you don't have to get it all in one go because it's a bit kind of too much. So what I'll do is I'll play the video and I'll pause it, and Ed and I will do our reactions to it. And I'm going to show you who's responsible, actually. And it's not the Australian government that's actually doing it, but we don't know who's responsible. But I'll show you in that little clip who's responsible. You really like it. Ed's got a piece for us today on digital IDs, and of all people and of all countries in the world, who do you think's leading it? Who is it? America, UK, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the Five Eyes like that, somewhere in Europe, Norway, Sweden? Ukraine. They were always leading it. They were always getting their people and their economy to supplicate to the evil digital ID so we can move to central bank digital currencies. They were the leaders of that in Europe. And the war happened, and that kind of just went away. That made their plans go away. But now we've kind of got into a bit more of a rhythm with life over there. That's actually come back out. So I'm looking forward to a conversation about that and hearing more about what Ed's got to say on that as well. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to come on over to Spotify and follow us over there. Don't forget to pop on over to Twitter and to Telegram. And we've also got a Rumble channel if something goes wrong for us here on YouTube for one reason or another. Ed, I wanted to kick off and give you some opportunity there to have some opening remarks. What have you got for me today, mate?
Well, hello to everyone in the Hey Ed WhatsApp group. I hope you guys are tuning in. And yeah, I really hope people pay attention to this particular show. We have these topics. They might be a little bit on the serious side, but they're important. These are things that everyone needs to be aware of because most people are not. Even now. Yeah, regarding Ukraine, boy, you guys are going to be amazed at this story. You're not going to believe it. Um,
It's the unspoken truth, mate. That's what it is.
Yeah, and it is true. And everything we're going to be talking about is documented. So we're not speculating here. And
I want to highlight something before we get going with the show today. I've been watching. I think it's a 4 or 5. I think it's 5 parts. Might be 4. Don't quote me there. On Netflix, it's called Dead or Alive, and it's about a group of cops in America, in a small town in America, and there's like 4 or 5 of them, and they're a missing persons unit. And what they're doing is the report. So it's a beautifully produced piece of content where it's produced almost like a TV show. Just the way they lay out the police officers as the characters, and then they show like this guy over here is a potential villain, or this person has gone missing. Just the way that it's put together, it's just a masterpiece of editing. And I love those Netflix docuseries. They're just really, really beautiful. I just love the art that they do, and not enough credit's been paid to that. I don't think. Just they give it so much thought and so much effort. Anyway,
what's Netflix?
You got to get off CNN, pal. What's wrong with you? The bloody MSNBC and ABC and CNN and all that garbage you're watching all the time, man. I've got to get you onto streaming TV. Anyway, let me make my point here about this TV show, because this so we closed the case on one and we straight away opened the next case, and it's this man. He appears to be a family man, and his vehicle is found on the side of the road, but all of his stuff's in the vehicle. His wallet's there, all of the tools that he uses in his job are in the back of his ute. All this stuff. It's like a really puzzling sort of thing, and you the police are all confused on the front end of it. They're like, "What is this? What's going on? This is really strange on the side of the road." Anyway, it cuts to the scene, and the lady is going home from work, and she says, "My job as a police officer, and especially as a missing persons police officer, an investigator, is to uncover the truth and to find the truth no matter where it leads us. And sometimes that truth is really ugly." And I thought to myself, no matter what happens in this world, no matter if you're a police officer, you're just a normal person, a normal citizen of the country that you live in, the truth always comes out. It always comes out. And all of those people in the last couple of years saying, the government is controlling us, this is a conspiracy theory, this is not real, those masks don't work, that's going to injure you, etc., 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 they were all silenced. And I'm going to show you how they were silenced. But I'm also going to show you that the truth has come out. And we know the truth has come out. And there are some people that fight for truth. I don't see myself as a freedom fighter. All I do is see myself as somebody who's able to stand back and to be a bit detached and use some critical thinking by getting my emotions out of the way to see what it is that they're trying to say to us, and then to look behind the curtain of what's actually going on as well. I think that that's a really important thing, Ed. In society, the truth always comes out, man. What do you think?
Yeah, the critical thinker, again, right? Those words keep popping up in our conversations. People need to develop their critical thinking skills, which is not being taught anymore. Like they used to in school, you used to taught critical thinking theories. That's not being taught anymore. Too many people do not take the time to think things through. Don't take things at face value. The powers to be who want to control us, they're counting on us taking them at their word, taking them at face value. And if you want to get to the truth, then you need to do a little digging. You got to look behind the curtain, which we do try to pull back every day.
All right, let's have a little peek behind this curtain. It's actually really cool.
Called the online content.
So let me just pause the video there for a sec. As we move forward, this fellow here, his name's Alex Antic, and he's a senator here in the Australian Parliament, and he's in front of a committee, right? So A legislative committee is what it is. I'm not sure when this is from. I think it's a couple of days ago. This is from his YouTube channel. I'll link his YouTube channel down below as well. For some reason, StreamYard won't let me play a YouTube video with the sound at the same time because it's running through my Rodecaster. So I've got to pull the video out and put it up here for everyone to watch, but make sure you check out Alex's channel. He's a truther, and he'll give you the unspoken truth. So what I'm going to do here, Ed, is I'm going to play the video and I'm going to pause the video periodically here so we can do the reaction video and do my little piece as we go. And we can have a bit of a discussion as we go about this. I think you'll really like it.
I have a document here in front of me called the Online Content Incident Arrangement Procedural Guidelines. The document's provided to me on Friday under Freedom of Information. It's a document that's been redacted, all 28 pages thereof. This is dated version...
An FOI document that's been redacted, all 28 pages.
All 28 pages. Why bother? Why bother?
Watch this dickhead's justification of redacting all 28 pages. Ready? This guy is like just evil, slimeball, awful government bureaucrat. I hate people like this. Not Alex, this guy that's about to speak. Ready? Watch.
1.3 November 2022. Who was this arrangement with?
So that's an internal procedural instruction to our staff about how to go about their engagement with the technology companies, Meta and companies of that nature. Mr. Roy will come forward, head of our counterterrorism centre. So that gives instruction and guidance to our staff. It doesn't form, when you say an arrangement with, it doesn't form a legal or other.
But there is an arrangement with social media companies.
There's an arrangement beyond, outside of the remit of the Online Safety Act. So I'll just go through this in components. The Parliament, of course.
I just want you to note his body language. I've watched this video a couple of times, right? So the guy leans back, for people just listening, not watching, the guy leans back in his chair and he folds his arms. And, you know, there's a variety of things that means. Donald Trump used to fold his arms all the time as well. And he just said it never means anything. I just stand like that because I'm comfortable, right? So it could just be that. But if you take the other factors into this guy's body language, he's not looking at Alex when he's talking. He's looking down at him, and he could be looking down because he's thinking, but there's a whole series of body language cues that I see there where this senator asking questions of me, the director of the department, has no right to ask these questions, and who do you think you are? And if you listen to the tone and the inflection of his voice, and again, I've listened to this video a couple of times just to make sure I'm not crazy, but he's so unbelievably condescending. Watch how condescending he is.
Of course, is legislated, in some cases, direct legal powers that fall to the e-safety commissioner. She can use powers in very particular circumstances under the Online Safety Act. Some of those assist us in our mission in terms of countering terrorist and violent extremist content, or TVEC to use the acronym. And then a number of agencies and departments that operate in this space where the legal thresholds of the Online Safety Act are not triggered, have got arrangements in place whereby if we see something, for instance, that might not quite fit or meet the thresholds of the Online Safety Act, where we can engage through mutual benefit with those companies to say there's abhorrent material or there's terrorist content or there's extremist content, and according to your own conditions, whether it's Facebook or one of the other major technology providers, you may wish to consider a takedown outside of the remit of the Online Safety Act. And I think it's fair to say, Mr. Roy, that document is a procedural instruction to our own staff about how to both trigger those arrangements and how to go through the steps.
So just to be clear, ladies and gentlemen, just to catch you up, so Alex has got the document, the FOI document, and that document is an internal document about how we take down abhorrent or terrorist content from the internet. And I guess, is that free speech? Is that them censoring free speech? And when you listen to what this guy says and why it was developed, you'll probably agree with it.
Mandated.
Okay, so and when did this arrangement with social media companies first kick off?
Do you have the history, Mr. Roy?
I do, Senator. The OCIA was first established in
You might just spell out the acronym on first usage.
Online Content Incident Arrangements was established, I think, in early 2020, in part as a response to the Christchurch attack, where there was a significant online element, as you'll no doubt remember.
So, remember that psycho in Christchurch went around and he streamed on Facebook and went and shot a whole bunch of people, right? But he says in early 2020. Did that happen in early 2020?
No, wasn't that like 2007 or 2000?
No. It was, I could probably Google it quickly and find it, but I do know that it didn't happen in early 2020 because the biggest story here in Australia in early 2020 was not the Christchurch shooting, it was the bushfires where all of Australia was burning to the ground and then there's some strange virus appearing in China. So this was commissioned maybe because of what happened in Christchurch earlier, but the timing of it the optics of the timing certainly look a little bit speculative when all of a sudden COVID happened and this little part of their department was actually stood up. All right, let's keep going.
And so it is, as the Secretary rightly says, a non-binding procedural advice for both Home Affairs staff but also some other Commonwealth agencies on how to respond.
So you effectively have a backdoor portal to the ear of social media companies to ask them to remove content or to request that they remove content on a range of issues. I accept terrorism. I mean, that's a very legitimate one, of course. But somehow that has drifted into COVID-related posts.
A couple of things, Senator. Firstly, there's nothing sort of backdoor about it. It's
All right, I'm calling bullshit right there, Ed.
Yeah, it is a backdoor.
I'm calling bullshit. So the reason he goes, I don't accept that it's not a backdoor to these social media companies. All right, cool. No worries, man. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on YouTube. I've got a Snapchat account, I've got a TikTok account, I've got every social media account that you could think of, right? So assume that I'm an Australian person that has that, an American person, a European person, an Asian person. Wherever I live on planet Earth, whatever country I live on planet Earth, how do I go to the person in my country at Facebook or Meta and say to them, hey, I think there's some misinformation here, or this guy is like a potential terrorist. Can you do something about that? How do I do that? I have absolutely no idea, man.
Well, you can tell that this guy is benefiting from the congressional hearings we had here about the FBI having their, quote, backdoor into Meta. And so I think, is very sensitive to that word, backdoor. And he doesn't want to be
drawn on it.
Right.
So what I say, the reason I call bullshit on it is because it might not sound like a backdoor to you, but do you have a rep at Facey that you can actually call? No, but I'm certain if I look through the Facebook, they've got like extensive documentation that will lead you down a rabbit hole where you could find somebody to report something. You can find a post and you can report that post directly, but the algorithm actually then sends an alert to somebody at a tech support desk where somebody looks at that and somebody actually deals with that. I'm never, ever able to speak to a human being. And I don't accept for a nanosecond that this guy in the Department of Home Affairs isn't able to pick up the phone and speak to somebody from one of those companies. Because he's going to pick up the phone and go, oi, hey man, I've got a whole bunch of things I'm about to send to you in an email. This is an emergency. You need to take this stuff down now, especially if it's related to terrorism. Especially because that's what their whole e-safety act is about. And rightly so, right? I accept that. You don't want somebody committing crimes and atrocities on Facebook on a live stream or any live stream for that matter. So they have to have some level of urgency there. So for him just to say, I don't accept it's a backdoor, what he's actually doing is he's saying it's not a backdoor to what it is that you're talking about, Alex. But we do have a backdoor. If there's a terrorist attack or there's something going on where we think it's urgent, we're going to get on the phone because that's the fastest way to get something done. And there's the red hotline phone on the desk there in the Australian Home Affairs Department, and there's one in somebody's office in Facebook, an Australian representative, and the phone rings and he goes, oh shit, I better pick that up. Picks it up because he knows that's a mission priority. What's up, boss? Hey, yeah, no worries, we'll fix it.
Yeah, well, if I were the senator, I'd be responding, in regards to terrorist incidents, why the hell don't you have a backdoor?
Yes, exactly. So that's what I'm saying. They do have it for that. But what this guy is saying, he's just like slime ball fucking bureaucrats, man. Slippery, slimy, awful people, man. And they're just, no, we don't have a backdoor for that. But we do have it for this because it's in legislation. Everyone goes, oh, okay. So you're not using that same thing, that same backdoor to get the same access to do that. And Alex doesn't have enough time to examine these things and ask these questions. We now know in America, it came out last week under another FBI investigation, that there was a tool that the FBI were using and they used it more than 286,000 times illegally. And they use a tool, and whatever the tool was, someone went and typed in there and found the information they want. And, I've got an investigation that involves like 30 people in the immediate network, and I've got to use that tool 30 times. And I use that tool 8 times each time on 30 people. I've used it a couple of hundred times, and I was never supposed to use it at all because it's an invasion of privacy. You don't have a warrant. You're not allowed to do those things in accordance with law. But 286,000 times that was used. So I don't accept what this guy is saying for a second. I think it's bullshit. All right, should we keep going? Have you got any comments there?
Well, I was going to say, I'll bet he's on a first name basis with a couple guys at Facebook.
He would have to be. He's the director of the Home Affairs Department. He'd have to be.
Yep.
And if he wasn't, I'd be saying, well, if there was a terrorist thing there, how are you going to stop it, man? And if your people pick that up before the Facebook people pick it up, how are you going to stop it? And if you weren't on a first name basis, I'd be asking questions. So he's contradicting himself here.
an agreement with social media companies to either for the relevant agency, in the case of the e-safety commissioner, to refer matters to providers under the e-safety commissioner's own powers, or for other agencies to refer directly through a public referral that any citizen can make to social media companies.
So I also asked the question of the numbers of matters that were being referred, and I was told that through a 5-year period, 1 January 17 to 15 December 2022, that's just because that was around the time when I made the FOI request, there were 13,636 referrals to digital platforms, 9,423 related to terrorist and violent extremist related referrals, okay, fair enough, but 4,213 related to COVID-19 related content. Now, in relation to those, we haven't been provided with any clarification as to what they were. Were any of these referrals relating to matters which have now been debunked and disproved, like, for example, the effectiveness of the COVID vaccines on transmission?
Senator, I would refer one of my colleagues to deal with the question on COVID referrals, but I do want...
Whoa, 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 whoa. Is that a blue suit he's wearing? Looks like it. Is it made of Teflon? Let me just back that up for a second and say what Alex says, again, just on that COVID point, and just listen to what this guy says. He's like slipperier than Teflon. I just cracked the fried egg, man, and it was so slippery on the fry pan, man, and it slipped out, fell off the stove and went on the floor. Watch how slippery this guy is.
I think matters which have now been debunked and disproved, like, for example, the effectiveness of the COVID vaccines on transmission?
Senator, I would refer one of my colleagues to deal with the question on COVID referrals, but I do want to clarify that the OCIA is specifically, as the Secretary has noted, in relation to abhorrent violent material or terrorism and extremist violence.
So why has it drifted into the matter of public health then?
Well, it hasn't. I suspect those things were connected in the FOI response to you, but the OCIA does not deal with matters of COVID referrals.
So the Department of Home Affairs...
So just put a pin in that for a second. He says that it doesn't refer to matters of health. Just put a pin in it for a sec, right? And let's keep it going.
Has not been making requests to social media companies.
I might just ask Ms Hawkins from our strategic communications area to come forward. There are two different things at play here. In answering, very literally it would seem, the question that you asked.
All right, man. This guy was kind of all right to begin with, but the minute that he said, in answering your question very literally, it would seem. Listen, man. What you have to understand, Mr. Old Man at the boss of the department, when you think that you're in charge, you're not in charge of jack fucking shit, mate. You're not in charge of anything. You are not the arbiter of truth, and you are not the person here in Australia responsible for telling me what to fucking do. I can't tell you how angry this makes me and how disgusting and abhorrent these people are, because Senator Alex is the senator who is elected by the constituents to ask this guy questions. And we're asking you questions on behalf of Alex's constituents. That's how our government operates. We elect people to represent us. Alex is representing his constituencies in this committee, asking these guy questions. And he says, yeah, I have to answer your questions quite literally. Yes, you fucking idiot. You do have to answer the questions quite literally every single time. Because I'm asking you questions in the way the Australian government works and in the way our system works. Alex has been elected. He's in charge. Not you, him. But Alex is not in charge. His constituents are in charge because they're the ones coming to him saying, hey, Alex, can you ask this guy some questions about this stuff when you go in front of this committee? And can you make this happen for us? And then this guy is so arrogant, so unbelievably arrogant. This old man that's been sitting in this bureaucratic position probably for 35 years of his life just goes, well, you know, so you want me to answer your questions quite literally. What you want me to say is a yes or no answer. Man, the arrogance and the hubris of these people is absolutely disgusting. And these are the people that are responsible for censoring Australians. These people here, right here. These people on camera, they're the ones responsible. But watch how slippery they are when he goes, well, as it relates to matters of health, I don't accept that. And then now I'm going to bring in the communications director. I'm going to bring in a third party because I'm so slippery. I want it to be at arm's length from me. And to your point, Ed, I think 100%, man, they've watched these hearings in America and they've gone, don't make those mistakes. Mm-hmm. When they do that, do this. When they say that, do that. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what they're doing. Mm-hmm. What are you feeling when you see this, Ed? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I'm thinking, when you're in these kind of meetings, and you have people like that talking, you have to really be patient. You got to sit back and when he's talking, I kind of like put my head down and just try to listen, because I swear to God, you and I talked about this last night and off camera. I think that these people go to a special class to learn how to speak a lot without saying anything.
It's a special kind of stupid, isn't it?
That's special kind of stupid. Well, it's a special kind of deceit.
Corporate doublespeak is what it is.
There you go.
It is. All right, let's keep going.
Our staff very helpfully I won't say conflated, because that's indicative. They combine two different tracks of activity. The work of the Counter-Terrorism Centre that Mr Roy is the acting head of, that solely and exclusively concerns itself with terrorist and violent extremist content, TVEC, because we're scanning social media for other purposes, terrorist incidents being live streamed and the like, that if we came across material that, in the Department of Health's view, offended or potentially offended the disinformation and misinformation standards that the technology companies themselves have in place around COVID, that as an assistant or an adjunct to the Department of Health, it doesn't typically, I don't know if they've since built it, a 24/7 referral capability, we would take that on as, if you like, a utility player able to assist the Department of Health. So I just want to distinguish between...
Yeah, so I've got that, but what you're describing effectively there is a censorship industrial complex.
So before I let Alex go there a little bit down that rabbit hole, what he's saying there, that boss man there, he's saying is we're not actually doing anything wrong. We're not doing anything wrong. We're not the ones saying if it's right or it's wrong. What we're doing is we're taking the advice from these third parties, and these other government agencies are telling us what we should or shouldn't do. And we've got the power, the connections, and the authority and the legislative ability to actually act on it and do something about it, because you can't give that to every department of the government, and rightly so. It should just be sitting with Home Affairs. So someone from the health department says, I think that's not quite right. Someone from over there says, I think that's not quite right, or I saw a post about this. Who do I call? I call this guy at the Department of Home Affairs, or I send him an email, send him a text message and go, oi, look at this doesn't look right. And then he feeds it on to his team and go, hey, can you look at that for me? They go, yeah, that's not right. Let's get rid of it. Hey, Jono from Facebook, can you pull that down, mate? Yeah, sure, no worries, done. There you go, it's done. What's next? And that's how this is happening. This is how they're censoring you. And this guy is keeping you at arm's length. And this guy is keeping himself at arm's length, pretending that he's doing nothing wrong. But he's no different to a Stasi agent from the 1930s. It's unbelievable, man.
And if you'll notice, he starts every paragraph with how important their anti-terrorism activity is, and he wants to, he wants to make it absolutely clear that their focus is on anti-terrorism. Oh yeah, if you want to talk about other stuff, I got this person over here. You should talk to.
It's just dismissive of it, eh?
That's right. It's dismissive of it, and they're trying to, paint the picture, create the facade that it's all about anti-terrorism, and this other stuff, yeah, they diminish it. And they don't want to touch it. They know they're guilty of sin, but they're not going to own it in this kind of setting. They'll do everything they can to obfuscate themselves.
Yeah, and obfuscate is the right word, right? Because they're trying to stay at arm's length from it. And I understand why he's just talking about terrorism, because that's their number one remit, right? Is to the Home Affairs Department.
Well, he knows that nobody's going to argue with that.
Yeah, exactly right.
That's a dull statement. He's trying to establish his bona fides. Oh yeah, well, I'm anti-terrorist. Well, who's
me too.
Argue? And who isn't?
Me too, bro. But I'm not I'm not censorship. I'm not pro-censorship like you are, that's for sure. Watch where Alex goes with this, because it's quite funny. You will laugh at this. I'll just back it up a little bit so you can get a bit more context.
A utility player able to assist the Department of Health. So I just want to distinguish between...
Yeah, so I've got that. But what you're describing effectively there is a censorship industrial complex that arises out of the Department of Health, presumably ATAGI, and the Therapeutic Goods Association, directing traffic through the Department of Home Affairs to enforce that?
I'm not going to accept the characterisation, because you'll have to ask Mr Hunt what was in his mind when he announced the counter-COVID disinformation and misinformation initiative. We were then funded, as I recall, Ms Hawkins, to actually...
So once again, you have to ask Mr. Hunt, who was the minister at the time, the health minister, right, about misinformation and disinformation. I don't know what they say over at ATAGI or the TGA or what the health minister is saying. All the health minister is saying to my people in my department to prevent terrorism is saying, I think this is misinformation and disinformation. Can you call your guys at the social media company and get rid of that stuff for me? Oh, yeah, no worries, I'll do that for you. And so they are... What they're doing is they're absolving themselves of responsibility. But these government bureaucrats, nobody is ever held responsible. Nobody's in Victoria, when they gave a $50 million to a contracting company, $50 million contract to a contracting company, they brought all of the politicians in front of them and they all just said, I can't recall how that happened. I can't recall. And that's what the lawyers told them to say, right? So this guy here is absolving himself of the responsibility. So he's making himself look like we just look after anti-terrorism stuff. That's what the Department of Home Affairs does. We only look after those things. We don't have anything to do with what the health department are telling us to do. We just do what they tell us to do. We don't investigate that. So if you then went over to the health department and said, well, who is the arbiter of truth over there saying that that's mis or disinformation? They'll go, oh, well, those people over there. So someone struck that off to say the effectiveness of vaccines didn't stop transmission. But they said we know that, and Pfizer said that, And that's not misinformation. But they said anybody that says that the vaccine doesn't stop transmission is mis and disinformation. So that was incorrect information given to the health department, given to these people, and then people were censored. But these people here in front of you who did the censoring didn't have the ability, nor have they got the ability to fact check anything that the health department says. So the health department have got their facts from somewhere, I don't know where, but if their facts are incorrect, irrespective of what we're talking about here, right? If their facts are actually incorrect, which they were, by the way, there was no accountability or responsibility. So there's a percentage of people that had their content censored as a result of saying something that was true, and the government said that that wasn't true, even though they didn't have the proof or the evidence to say that it wasn't true. This is how they censor you. If you don't follow the narrative, if you don't do what they say, if you don't burn the books that they tell you to burn, if you don't wear the clothes they tell you to wear, you're going to be off to Sector 9 making socks for a living for the rest of your life, and you'll be in the digital fucking gulag. These people are just, the hubris of these people is unbelievable, man.
Well, you know, it's nonstop revisionist history, right? And they have to, do they think that we got recordings, man. We got recordings of people saying things, and then now I don't know what was in his heart or what was the statement. I don't know what was in his mind. He was in front of cameras telling people lies, saying, "Well, that is disinformation."
Well, what he's saying is true. He doesn't know what the health minister was thinking when he sent that information across to him. All that happened was it didn't even go on his desk. It went on someone else's desk that was actually going to access it.
Well, I don't know about those particular guys, but we've had health officials here go on TV and lecture the public about things that they deemed were misinformation. The people out there that are telling you that double jabs do not work, those people are dangerous to society. Right? They say and they take them with misinformation titles.
You know who's a danger to society, man?
Well, let me get my notepad out. Yeah.
It's just my opinion, man. But these people are in charge of the security of this country. They're the Department of Home Affairs, and they can't even handle a couple of questions and can't tell the truth about what's actually going on, because all they're worried, and this is part of the problem that we have in government. Governments all around the world have this problem, because if somebody steps up and takes responsibility and goes, imagine if he stood up and he said, you know what, when I look back at everything that happened in the last couple of years and all of that health mis and disinformation, I wish I'd done a better job. I wish I'd gone away and verified what those people were telling me to do. Because if I had verified what they were telling me to do, because I'm in a position of authority and somebody sent an email and saying, hey, can you take that post down? Can you do that? But if I went back to those people and said, can you please verify exactly why you want me to take that post down? Then there'd be a paper trail of you covering your ass. But because you didn't do that, because you just took at face value exactly what these health bureaucrats were telling you to do, you just followed them blindly like a Stasi implementer, and you did what they told you to do. Now you're in this position. And what that shows to me is a complete total lack of spine and a lack of leadership. And you don't understand leadership because you don't understand that every critical juncture that you make, at every decision point that you make, is affecting Australia and it's affecting Australians. And you fail to understand that because you're so arrogant that you fold your arms and you pick at the desk while a senator is talking to you, and it's like that senator is the biggest pain in the ass in your day. 150,000% of your attention needs to be on the senator that's asking you those questions. And the arrogance and hubris needs to be put aside for 1 minute whilst you're there addressing the public, because you serve the public. You work for the public. You don't work for the government. You work for the public on behalf of the government.
Yeah, well,
that's how it works. And it just doesn't make any sense, man, these people.
Okay. Well, what you're saying, see, problem with you, Rob, is you tell the truth too much. Listen.
Well, I'm showing you that this guy's the leader and he has no leadership ability, because people that are leaders take responsibility.
That depends on your viewpoint, right? I think he is not interested in serving the public. He had an agenda to promote.
I think he's interested in serving the department and doing the right thing by the department, but without realizing he's not actually doing that.
Okay, well, you're being very generous to him.
Well, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, right?
Okay. See, I'm not.
You're not. You don't believe it.
No. I mean, this whole business about forcing people to do things that they did not. There's no scientific proof or need for that stuff. That proof be damned. They had an agenda. This is about control. This whole business that went on the past 3 years was not about public health.
Yeah, but that's where I'm saying I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt a little bit, because the health message is coming to him, and he's like, oh, you want me to do that? Okay, cool, I'll do it. And he's helping his mate in the other department to get the job done. But what he should have done, and what he should do now, is accept and take responsibility that was a mistake. And if he had have went back and said, okay, you want me to get rid of that? Show me the evidence that that's actually true. Show me. But he didn't do that because he's a shit leader, and the leader that is now being called out on something is squirming his way out of it. That's why this is such a bad thing, because he's trying to wriggle his way out of what actually happened. And his failure of leadership is on display for everybody to see. And I think he knows it. That's why he's folding his arms. That's why he's leaning back in his chair, and he's like, his body language is like that, and he's looking just the way that he actually is. His body language shows that he's been found out. And he's been found out that his leadership was just absolute garbage.
Okay. Well, you're being more generous to him than I am.
You're saying he's part of the deep state and responsible for it.
Yeah, I think he's just like the Democrats here, who do not see the crisis at our border as a failure, as a crisis. They see it as a big success. All right. I mean, so it depends, because it's part of their agenda. That is part of their agenda. And I think, personally, I think this gentleman was part of the agenda during that whole worldwide flu crisis. I think they were doing those things on purpose. I do not think it was about public health. I think it was about control and getting people to do things that they didn't want to do. And so you're being more generous than I am.
Let's come to the crescendo, because this is kind of funny towards the end.
Rob Bruss, the liberal bleeding heart of.
We got dedicated funding subsequent to that early emergency period. So initially, when the Department of Health was mobilising in relation to all sorts of things that were flying around, shall we say, the fringes of the internet, the government of the day was concerned to ensure that citizens, particularly in cultural and linguistic. Sorry,
I can't let that go past. The fringes of the internet. Well, tell me where the centre of the internet is. Is that Instagram with tits and ass and six packs? And is the fringes of the internet people that are on YouTube reporting on government bureaucrats like you that are actually trying to wriggle out of every single question? Am I on the fringe of the internet now? Anyway, hang on. I've got to actually, I'm going to step away from my computer for a second. I'm going to tie my horse up over there. That's the high horse that I'm on. I've just got to get off that, and let's keep going.
Difficulties, but otherwise would have advice from the Department of Health, and because they didn't have a counter misinformation capability of any note, they'd be assisted by the Department of Home Affairs to then trigger these referrals to Facebook and the like to say you might want to consider taking this.
I understand the process. I'm concerned about the concept in the sense that the Department of Home Affairs is effectively, under what you've described, almost the enforcer of various different parts of the narrative from different parts of the department. For example, if people are posting things around, disagreeing with climate alarmism, is the Department of Home Affairs going to interject and ask social media companies for that to be removed as well?
Let's try it. I believe climate change is fake. I believe everything that they're doing with climate change is to scare you that the world is going to end and we're going to all die in some sort of melting pot of I don't know, because no one can tell me what's happening. And if I deny climate change, if I'm a climate change denier, I'm saying it publicly here on the video, I think that's part of the narrative to control you. We'll see how true that actually is or it isn't.
Well, it's nice knowing you, Rob. We will probably never see him again. And
if I get struck off, I'm going to ring Alex and go, hey, get me struck back on. Call that guy to get me back on, because I'm just I'm testing the waters. I can say whatever I want. I can say climate change is fake, or I can say climate change is real. It's just all a matter of perspective.
What you need is your own back door. So get to work on it.
All right, let's go, Alex.
Yeah.
We had a particular role that arose from a Morrison government decision to take a particular, to lean in on COVID dis and misinformation. I use the term enforcer, I just want to be clear. We have no more authority, unless something's triggered under the Online Safety Act, where there are legal powers that are vested in the e-Safety Commissioner. The only thing that we can do is, by way of mutual agreement and by way of these approaches to the companies, to refer these instances of content to their own terms and conditions.
This requires,
so we enforce nothing.
No, I get that. This requires your staff to make a value judgment about matters of freedom of speech and then refer them on to others.
I cannot accept that characterisation. The work that we've done.
Well, who does that?
Well, yeah, of course.
Who does? We're about to find out.
Yeah.
Let's find out who makes that value judgment and that character judgment as to whether or not something's mis or disinformation. Watch how slippery they are, man. You've never seen Teflon like this.
Done in COVID, which is drawing to an end at 30 June, the funding?
It is, Secretary. Yeah.
Is solely driven by the expert advice that we rely upon from the Department of Health. We don't have a separate view on the truth claims about... So if we're asked by the Department of Health, for instance, to look at claims that bleach will, protect you from COVID...
Yeah, but
then,
that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about...
Well, I'm not sure what these referrals consist of,
Well,
but...
can you, if you have a spreadsheet of these, can you disclose
we can take on notice the types, the instances of the... But they are takedown requests. There's no enforcement powers. They are requests to the company, be it Meta or any of the other companies. And I think I'm right. So Ms Hawkins runs our strategic communications function.
So this is how stupid these people actually are. Look at them. 1, 2, 3, 4 of them sitting there. There's 2 behind them and 2 sitting in the crowd there with their folders in case they need to be called upon. This is how unbelievably fucking stupid they are and how they treat us like we're absolute morons. These government bureaucrats think that we are fools. He says that we have no more power than anybody else. What he's saying is that if we see something and we spot it, we'll let them know, meaning the social media companies, that this content is not in accordance with their terms and conditions. Okay, cool. So imagine right now if I get 2 phone calls. I get one phone call from my local accountant who's doing my tax return and goes, "Hey, Rob, you need to get me some documents for your tax return. Please get it over to you." And then I go, "Okay, cool, no worries." And a week passes and I get another call, "Hey, don't forget those documents. We've got to submit something." And I just take my time with it. It's no sense of urgency. But then if the Australian Tax Office calls me and goes, "Hello, Mr. Bruss, how you doing? I can see that there's a small error on your tax return here. Can you please fix that up? If you don't fix that up, unfortunately, we're going to have to take enforcement action against you under legislation XYZ, and we're going to have to do this, and you're going to be subjected to a potential $10,000 fine." How quickly do you think I'd act? Instantly. I'd stop what I was doing. I'd find the documents. I'd get it across to the ATO dude and then go, "There you go. Thanks, man. Thanks for your help. Thanks for the call. There you go. Done." But the accountant doesn't have the same level of attention. These people here think that they have no more power than a normal individual like me. So if I call up their person in Meta and go, "Hey, Jono, can you take that post down?" He'll go, "Thanks, Rob. See you, man. Bye." But if this person calls up and go, "Hello, it's John Smith from the Australian Department of Home Affairs. Can you take that post down?" "Yes, sir. Sure. Done." He thinks he has no more power than a normal person. But he doesn't understand that they're the Australian government. That's how arrogant and how stupid these people are. And they take us for fools by saying to us that, "Oh, we're the Australian government. We have no more power than a normal consumer and a normal person that sees the same thing and reports the same thing." Give me a break, man. Give me a break.
You know, I'm going to utilize my mind reading powers here at the moment. And if you take a look at the woman there at the end, what she's thinking right now is, "Don't drag me into this."
Watch how she says it, man. Like, I tell you what, this is like Stasi 101. Here it is. Ready?
And while writing something to the Senator, I don't wish to inadvertently mislead. We don't have our own, if you like, scientific unit or our own internal capability to adjudicate on the truth value or the claims that are contained in these referrals. We rely presumably on advice that we take from health.
Secretary, quite right. We're not the arbiter of truth, and of course we have...
Let me just say that again. Ready?
Claims that are contained in these referrals. We rely presumably on advice that we take from health.
Secretary, quite right. We're not the arbiter of truth. And
You're not the arbiter of truth. So that's the slipperiest Teflon in the history of Teflon. Whoever invented Teflon, they would be proud of this woman, where we're not the arbiter of truth. So she's the communications person for the Department of Homeland Security, or whatever the hell they're called, Home Affairs, and someone gives them the information and she just shrugs her shoulders and goes, "All right, if that's what you say, okay, cool, we'll deal with it." Because we're not the arbiter of truth. It's not our job to fact check what you're telling me. We don't have the resources. We don't have the people. We don't have anything. We don't know if this is true or not. So over the last couple of years, let's just rewind the clock and show you how stupid these people are and how the lack of leadership. And I'll say it again, is because they received information which was factually incorrect. It was unable to be proved, and then they censored people who were actually correct.
Yes,
they were the ones promoting disinformation and misinformation. Them.
You see, again, if I was a senator, I said, "Well, if you're not the arbiter of truth, then what the hell are you doing here?"
Watch what she says. She'll tell you who the arbiter of truth is.
Okay,
Ready?
good.
You have to listen closely for it.
of course, we have no coercive powers, and we are not in the business of being the arbiter of truth. Facebook, to use an example, Meta has got a policy about mis and disinformation as it relates to COVID, and so we have been working with the platform. We have got a service provider that looks across various platforms. They identify mis and disinformation.
Did you catch it?
Yeah, it's
Ready?
It's
I'll play it again. So listen carefully for it.
It's got a policy about mis and disinformation as it relates to COVID. And so we have been working with the platform. We have got a service provider.
We've been working with the platform and we've got a service provider. That's how the government stays at arm's length, and that's how the Australian government censors you. They use a third-party provider, not within the department, and they're not saying who that is. And the FOI request that Alex has got up on the desk there where he is completely redacted. And that's redacted because that's an internal document. They said that right at the start. This is the internal document about how we respond to anything that comes our way from the Department of Health relating to this particular issue. So this woman here has said, we're not the arbiter of truth, and they're not, because they're Department of Home Affairs, and they act in accordance with the legislation and do what they have to do under their remit. So if another department gives them information, they're just saying, it's not up to us, we're not the arbiter of truth, it's not up to us to fact check whether that's right or wrong, we're going to assume that that's right, and then we're going to move forward and do what you're asking us to do, because you wouldn't have contacted us and communicated us unless you wanted us to actually do something like that.
Okay, so they go to this third-party provider, and they tell them, "I want you to look at this post, and this post, and you decide whether we take it down or not." That's what
Correct.
they're saying?
No, it's the other way around. The third-party providers, the government wouldn't do that. They don't have the resources or the people sitting around all day looking at Facebook and Twitter.
So
there's a company that they've paid that sit around all day looking at Facebook and Twitter. The same as a Russian bot farm. That's what it is, right? They're Russian Twitter people. You know, you've seen those movies before where they create there's a room of IT tech people sitting around talking about, and they're on Twitter and they're real people and they're creating discourse and misinformation and disinformation, and then they use bots to amplify all of the things that these people are doing. So what's happening is there's a third-party company, there's people sitting around in this room, just like in a movie. They're sitting around looking at all of this stuff and they go, "Oh, I got one." Someone rang the bell. "I got one." "What is it?" Boss comes over, looks, "Yeah, that looks like a good one. Let's get that across to the health department, shall we?" They get it across there. Someone's sitting there going, "Yeah, that's misinformation. That's disinformation. We've got to take that down." And then they send an email to the communications director, or probably three below her, and go, "Here, we got another one. Can you get rid of that?" Someone goes, "Yeah, get on the phone. Oi, Jono, take that post down. Done. Next."
Okay, so someone in HHS does confirm that it's disinformation.
Well, you'd like to think so, but I don't think that that's what's happening, and that's why I say this is so slippery. And these people are just made of Teflon. Their suits are Teflon, and they do that deliberately because they've learned the lessons of what happened in America.
Yep. Okay, so this lady here, all of those guys, they're washing their hands completely of the whole issue.
Well, they're at arm's length from it. Like, I'm just the government bureaucrat here in the middle. That company over there is completely responsible for all of the takedowns and the dis and misinformation. They've sent it on to us. We've employed them to do that. We check their credentials and their bona fides. They're good. So we believe in what they say they're going to do, and we just pass it up the chain to these guys at the Department of Home Affairs.
Okay.
So they're the ones, a third-party company that's not even part of the government, they're the ones that are censoring you. Who are this third-party company? She calls them a service provider. And she says, quite correctly, we're not the arbiter of truth. But then if I back up across the table to the bald guy with the glasses, the one in charge, he's failed completely in his leadership. Because if he had have got that across his desk and realised how serious what it was that they were doing, they were censored 4,000, whatever it was, posts. You censored posts that were true. And you were the arbiters of mis and disinformation. You were the ones that were responsible for the lying. But then they put their hands up and go, we're not the arbiters of truth, we're just the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger. Come on, man.
But they had an opportunity to defend those 4,000 posts that were deemed disinformation. They could have.
Well, then he was talking about bleach. You go, I'm talking about, and Alex goes, well, I don't know what the posts are. The boss didn't even know what the posts were. And then Alex said, can you get me the spreadsheet of that? And he goes, yeah, I'll take it on notice and get it for you. So we're going to find out on the public record what they were actually censoring. No. And when we know what they were censoring, we'll be able to look at that information and see to this communications person saying, really, you censored that post? Why did you censor that post? Because that third-party company told us to censor it. So you're not even being censored by the Australian government, ladies and gentlemen. You're being censored by a third party. Are you kidding me? This
don't
is
know
the
who they are.
unspoken truth.
Yeah. Well, do you have a name of this third-party provider?
No, it's a service provider, and that's the document that was redacted in the FOI request. See what I mean? And then, now I come to your point. The whole thing was a ruse. The whole thing is a narrative, and that third-party company was probably paid by, I don't know. Just saying, I don't know. I'm not going to say it, but you know where I'm going with it. All right, we're nearly finished here. Watch this woman dig herself a deeper hole. Ready?
That looks across various platforms. They identify mis and disinformation as it might infringe, for example, Facebook's own policies, and then we provide that to the platform and say, for your consideration against your own policy.
But misinformation in relation to who's, on whose terms? And this is the point, right? We're now seeing a lot of things that were done at the time that are now considered to be incorrect, not disinformation or misinformation, that may or may not have been pulled down at the request of the department. I mean, how does the department, still going on, assess posts for misinformation or disinformation? How is that done? How are they identified?
As I said to you, we have a service provider that we have contracted to do it. We then look at the proposed referrals that they provide to us. We look at the policy, like I'll just keep using the example of Facebook, as they are the platform to whom we made the most referrals. We look at how those posts actually fit with Facebook's own mis and disinformation COVID policy, and then we make the referral. So
the Department of Home Affairs is the whistleblower for big tech censorship.
Watch little Miss Teflon here slip out of it. Ready?
I wouldn't characterise it as that, Senator.
You're using the tools to identify.
I wouldn't characterise it as that. Well, what would you characterise it as?
Identify posts that don't fit within the regime's narrative, when they may not be quite. They may be totally.
They may be totally wrong. I've been looking for a subject, Ed, that we can really show behind the curtain of what goes on in government. And that was the ultimate one that showed us. And well done to Alex there for bringing that to light. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll put his link down below to his YouTube channel, so make sure you connect with him. He's he's just a normal person telling the truth, asking questions on behalf of constituents in the way that you would expect him to do, because we've all suffered. It doesn't matter what country you're from. We've all suffered a great deal in the last couple of years as a result of all of that. And it's an absolute travesty that this is going on. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's move off this subject. And I just want to remind you that today's show is actually brought to you by you. In this crazy, uncertain world, we all need a way to protect and insulate ourselves from the outside forces that we simply cannot control. I'm a news junkie, and after a lifetime of constantly immersing myself in the darkness and the despair that engulfs the world, the path to shield myself and my family has become crystal clear. I want to invite you to come and join me in the Unspoken Truth community, where I'll show you how I protect my family from this crazy world. You'll get access to 3 masterclasses worth over $1,000, as well as our live events, training, and community of truthers just like you. Come on over to the unspokentruth.com.au and join us for just 50 cents a day. What are you waiting for? Get started now at the unspokentruth.com.au. Alrighty. Let's move off that craziness, because it kind of gets me riled up. It's funny, you get out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning, sit down and do that. It's a funny emotional thing that happens to you. You're like, these people drive me crazy. What I just want to ask, I'm going to share first. I'll ask you the question, like, why should people even care? So just hold that thought there, Ed, and let me give you a couple of seconds to think about why they should care. For me personally, the society and the world we live in we're the luckiest human beings to ever have existed. We live in the best society that's ever been created. We have food, water, shelter, clothing, warmth, coolness, whatever we need, we have that. And we have all the time to explore the things that are meaningful to us in our lives and that give us our lives meaning. And systematically, that's being destroyed by people like you just saw in a video. That's why I believe you should care. Is because our way of life is at risk. Our way of life is at risk by government bureaucrats who don't think that they're doing anything wrong and are hiding behind their positions. And if people were a little bit more, if they had a bit more mongrel inside of them, and they realized that if they took responsibility for their own actions, meaning they stood up and went, yeah, you know what? That is actually really terrible, Senator. It was terrible the way that we behaved. We probably shouldn't have censored those people. And we've learnt the lessons of that, and we've moved to actually put some things in place to stop that censorship from happening, because we believe that we've done a shit job and we can do better, and I'm the person that takes responsibility for that. We lack the mongrel inside of us to recognize that if you step up and take responsibility for yourself, you'll be okay. And if you're not okay, if you lost your job as a result of that, at least you know that you can lose your job and you've done the right thing, and you'll find another job. It'll be okay. Society is so good and we're so prosperous that if you lost your job as a result of a mistake, as a result of incompetence, as a result of something that you couldn't control and it was outside the scope of what you did, you'll be all right. You'll be all right. But people are just scared. They're scared and they're gutless, and they can't take responsibility for themselves because they believe that they're not doing anything wrong. But that's the absolute failure of leadership in this country, is that they don't think that they're doing anything wrong. The politicians are continuously lying to us. They're making promises that they can't keep, and these bureaucrats are lying to us as well because they're lying to protect their ass, and they're trying to protect their position. That's why you should care, folks, is because our way of life is at risk from people like these politicians and these bureaucrats. They're the ones that are destroying the fabric of our society, introducing woke legislation, allowing sexualized content in front of children, normalizing what would be considered otherwise pedophilia. And, you know, I'm a minor attracted person. What the fuck is going on with society when people say those words out loud? You know, you wouldn't say those words to my face. You wouldn't dare say that about my daughter or my son. Imagine if someone said that to you had a 9-year-old daughter that was next to you and someone said, oh yeah, I'm a minor attracted person. What are your pronouns? Minor attracted person. What the fuck? But these politicians can't even tell you what a woman is. And they're the ones that are systematically destroying our society. And the destruction of our society is coming from within. And you know what? It's being promoted. It's been promoted by the WEF, the evil Klaus Schwab, the Chinese Communist Party, and those who seek to destroy our way of life. That's why you should care. That's why I care.
No, well said. You know, and for those of us who live in supposedly democratic societies, governments should fear us. You know, we hold the power in theory, but when we're not paying attention and when we are agnostic about what's going on in the world, these people continue to get in power and to lead. And even if our people did get in power, we got the whole deep state that really runs things, and they're the ones with the real agendas.
These bureaucrats are the deep state. We just showed it to you.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, let's move off that. You've got a really good one about digital IDs. We're in the same theme here today, you and I. So have you got a report for us there, haven't you? Let's have a look.
I do, and just as the audience know, Rob and I we don't coordinate our stories. He doesn't know what I'm going to talk about until a few minutes prior to the show.
That's deliberate.
That is deliberate. All right, so here we go. Digital slavery. But guess who's leading the charge? Would you believe it? Ukraine. All right, so let's talk about it.
Romance for lovers only.
Okay, so we all know that Ukraine is infamous for being the most corrupt country in Europe, even to this day. But who would have thought, who would have guessed that they have the most sophisticated digital ID program in existence? So how did this happen? Let's start by looking at a quick short from our friends at Redacted.
One of the big stories that hasn't gone reported at all is the digital transformation of Ukraine. Many people don't know that the Zelensky government has created a laboratory, turned Ukraine into what they call a digital transformation. What is this all about? Dan Cohen just filed this investigation.
Director Samantha Power appeared at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland to promote a digital identification smartphone app called DIA.
And one of the most incredible things that Ukraine has developed over the last few years is an app called DIA that now delivers 120 services to the people of Ukraine.
The DIA app is a central plank in this process. It digitizes and centralizes documents, records, and government and business transactions all into a digital identity. This offers an unprecedented system of surveillance and control. The DIA project is funded primarily by US aid as part of its larger project to implement digital ID systems throughout the world.
Okay, so let's now look at an official 1-minute presentation about DIA.
2 years ago, we created a digital passport in a smartphone, a document one should not leave at home. Ukraine is the first country in the world to equate a digital passport with a physical one. Having a digital passport in DIA, Ukrainians can open bank accounts, receive money transfers, pick up postal packages, board trains and planes within Ukraine, etc. Using digital passport in DIA is secure and reliable. You can check its validity with the help of a QR code in the application. This feature is available for any DIA user. We got rid of endless paper trail, certified by handwritten signatures. In 2 simple clicks, Ukrainians are able to use certified copies of their important documents in institutions and even when checking into a hotel. The documents are stored in PDF format and have a date and notice from organization that had received it. DIA. Simple, invisible, humane.
Now, Ukraine didn't do this all by themselves. They had a lot of help from America and the WEF. And if you think I'm kidding, watch this.
With nearly 6 million Ukrainians displaced inside Ukraine, one public service app has become a crucial lifeline. It's called DIA, that's Ukrainian for action. And thanks to a $25 million U.S. investment, nearly half of Ukraine's population is actively now using the app to track Russian troops, report damage from Russian strikes, and secure loans to fix it. The app also houses passports and allows Ukrainians to access social aid and more than 100 other crucial services. Helping lead the effort is USAID Administrator and former UN Ambassador Samantha Power and Ukraine's Minister of Digital Transformation, Mikhailo Fedorov.
DIA was a gleam in someone's eye just in 2019, and here we are just 4 years later, a massive full-scale invasion later, and you have more than 120 services available to citizens. And they've adapted in wartime so skillfully. So now internally displaced people who would have had to wait in line and maybe outside, lining up for blocks to get access to payments, they just do it with one click on the phone. It was Zelensky's vision in 2019 to create the state in a smartphone or the state in an app. And miraculously, the war hasn't slowed that progress down. It's accelerated the progress. The other aspect of it, Mikhailo talked about convenience, which I think citizens' experience of government is so much about, is government making my life simpler and more convenient, or is it making it harder? And this app is something that I think the president in Ukraine.
Now watch this little clip from a roundtable at the WEF.
Maybe a week or 2 weeks after the invasion, and Mihail had a list of things that we could help with for Ukraine in general, but also DIA. I think realized that it was a tipping point, that this vision now had a purpose far beyond anything that they ever could have imagined. And we worked with Mihail and his team and have ever since to see that vision and what you all saw today, which takes, everything that DIA was and turns it into a platform that can do good globally in 200 countries around the world, starting in Europe.
And not only is Ukraine, leading the charge on this digital ID, but Estonia is also on the cutting edge. Let's look at Estonia.
Briefly. So first of all, what we're talking about is a convenient application, a government app for a smartphone. And initially, we're talking about bringing together identity, services, existing third-party applications and government applications. So for instance, we're building a government virtual assistant that talks to you in Estonian, which is a tricky thing to do because there are 1.3 million Estonian speakers in the world. We're bringing our online elections into the mobile world finally.
Okay, so notice that they are packaging all of this into a beautiful little present known as convenience. It's also convenient. Forget the fact that they're going to have access to every little bit of your personal data. And notice how they're using little obscure countries like Ukraine, like Estonia, to develop these things, work out all the bugs, get it all figured out before they introduce it to the big countries. And when they do introduce it to the big countries, they know it's not going to be popular. So countries around the world are trying to sneak it in.
No, it's a pleasure to talk to you. We want to concentrate on this digital ID consultation that the government they've rolled out, but they don't seem to have told very many people.
No, it's been sort of rather snuck through the back door whilst we've been rather distracted with everything else, with the coronation, with the 15-minute cities. While we've been looking at other things, this has suddenly turned up, and I didn't know about it until the consultation was actually put out on New Year's Day, where nobody would be looking, really.
No.
So let's be clear on this. This is a global effort. They want everybody in the world under this digital umbrella so they can control you. So in the comment section below, let me know what you think about this. Is this just the next logical advancement in humankind and human civilization? Everything's going to become more convenient, and therefore it's a good thing? Or do you think this is an insidious form of control? Okay, so listen, we have to do everything we can to safeguard our personal sovereignty, our personal freedoms. And a few things you can do: reduce your exposure to your bank, put some of your money into gold and silver, and establish streams of passive recurring income.
Man, oh man, that looks so convenient. So convenient.
I can't wait for mine. Yeah.
Listen, man, I've been in the branding and marketing space for a long time, and all entrepreneurs, and, as the entrepreneur from, I started my journey in 2002. You're always very conscious about the message that you're actually putting out there, and a lot of messaging that goes out there. And over the years, I've helped design different ad campaigns and run a bunch of different things, and that was as slick as they come. And if I could peel back and analyze exactly how they're trying to communicate the message to you and get it to you, they've done an excellent job at communicating and making it look like it's really good. And nothing could have been better for that than a war with Russia. Nothing.
The image of Ukraine, before the war, was a country full of, massive, dilapidated Soviet-style apartment buildings, roads with potholes, goats
driving around in ladders with corrupt politicians.
Right. Who would have thought that they would have such a sophisticated, ID system with people walking in these beautiful office buildings? By the way, it looks like such a modern, such a sophisticated country. Who would?
I've worked a lot with Ukrainians in the past, before the war and before COVID, with a lot of Ukrainian developers. And the reason that I've worked with those developers is because they're so cheap. And I've worked with a lot of Russian developers as well. They're absolutely fantastic, and they're really cheap.
Ukraine is actually a very educated society.
I mean, definitely.
If you take the criminal element out of the political class, the average, and PhDs and master's degrees are common there. Education is prized there. So it's actually a very educated, a populace. They value education. So a lot of imagery. Listen, I've been wanting. Ukraine is actually on my to-do list. I want to see Ukraine. Because I'm a history buff, and history. I mean, Ukraine has an unbelievable history. The original capital of Russia was Kyiv.
Hey! You're going to get us struck off YouTube completely now.
Okay, you can
cut it out.
You can edit that out. But it's got a fascinating history. That's one of the countries that I really do want to see. But when they mentioned how Samantha Power says, even with the war, they managed to pull it off. Are you kidding me? The war accelerated this effort. How?
Yep.
Because we flooded them with money. U.S. aid gave them $25 million. It was a huge kickstart to this program. So it accelerated this program. And of course, one of the features that they highlight there, not so much in these because I ran out of time. I couldn't. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I wanted to put into this presentation. But one of the features is you can report missile strikes, minefields, and collaborators. My neighbor. I overheard my neighbor.
Those bloody Stasis, man. Those stupid commies. They keep making their way back into our mobile phones and to the government and to the bureaucrats and to the leftists. Where are they all?
It's just a more convenient way to turn in your neighbor.
There's less chance of you getting caught.
If you're a Karen and that neighbor is really pissing you off because he won't pick up his dog poop in time, man, you're gonna get reported.
Man, I want to pull on the thread of some of the content there and the words that were used in there. So in the marketing campaign, right at the end of it, in that slick presentation where they kept dropping the mobile phones and they kept doing that, that's really clever videography and the way that they actually put that together, because it keeps your attention, right? But right at the end, they kind of slow the pace and the tempo of the video down to help you to understand that this is almost over, it's coming to an end. And then they end with a bang, and they say, simple, invisible, humane. And you're like, you're trying to pull on the heartstrings of me in the same way you try and scare me. And when they're sitting, so there was like a little piece that you had there, there's the Ukrainian developer, she was leaning back in a chair like this, the Ukrainian girl, and then the two people that were on the stage with her interviewing her, she's leaning back in a chair, and she says, the only words that I heard when she said that was full-scale invasion. And so I heard her say that, and she's saying full-scale invasion into people's phones or Russians into Ukraine, which one? Or both? You mean both, right? So it's a full-scale invasion of your privacy and a full-scale invasion into every corner and every single aspect of your life. And the ability to do that is not like anything in human history. The ability for them to control every single aspect of your life is simple, invisible, and humane. All funded by USAID. Oh my God. Who is USAID funded by?
The U.S. government.
Mm-hmm. And who else?
And WEF.
WHO.
And WHO and IMF. All of our favorite organizations. Listen, it's not all roads lead back to the WEF and their ilk. Including the WHO and the IMF, the World Bank, the BIS. Okay, so this is an elite cabal who have an absolute agenda. All this started back in, and they said they started this project back in 2017. Okay, so this has been in the works for a while, and and it's no accident that that it started in Ukraine and Estonia, little places out of the way outside of the war, people didn't pay attention to what's going on in Ukraine. They didn't
such small countries.
They didn't want to start developing this in the United States. They get too much publicity, too much in the sunlight. They'll do it over there in the shadows, and they'll figure it all out. And now they're doing road shows in the U.S. A lot of these clips were out of a Washington D.C. Conference that went on just a couple of days ago. And it's and they made a big deal about it. And everyone's applauding. People can't believe how successful this program is. And of course, it's painted with all the right terminology, all the right buzzwords to put.
I think they're applauding there, Ed. Tell me what you think here as well. I think they're applauding not the success of that. They're applauding the opportunity that it creates for them.
Sure.
Because they say, look how good it's working there. Imagine what we could do with it if we had that tech. That's a good idea.
There you go.
Pony up with them and do that there.
There you go. Well, like the gentleman in the clip at the WEF said, their intention is to get this going in at least 220 countries.
There's not 220 countries. There's 195 countries, and it's 193 if you take out fucking the Vatican and Palestine, because they're not actual countries.
Well, maybe the Ukraine war will create a few more countries in there. We'll carve out a few extra states in there.
I might get us struck off YouTube for what I just said. Palestine is not a real country. It's not a fucking country. How about that? There, I just said it. Hey, I wanted to ask you a question as well. Which app would you download if I gave you two choices? And I know that you have a bit of a hard time getting to the App Store and navigating that because
what's an app? Yeah.
But what I'm trying to do is highlight how good and how slick their marketing campaign is, because they make it look like a really good thing. And look, let's just put all of the negativity aside for a second. It actually is a really good thing. If they can aggregate all of the services into one place and make your life a little bit convenient. And to that woman's point, if you don't have to line up for 5 blocks and stand there for 5 hours to get something, you can just do it with one tap on your phone. Well, that's a good thing. So there's a lot of upside to what they're talking about. I can't deny that. It's impossible to deny that. But I would prefer that they weren't so embedded into my life and knew about every single aspect of my life. And there's just no way to know what they're going to do with the information that they get there. So all of the upside that you give to me in terms of convenience, invisibility, and humanity is all completely and totally negated by the fact that I don't trust you, because you haven't earned my trust, because all you do as a government is consistently lie to me. That is your remit, is to do what your constituents ask you to do and what you were elected to do, but instead you do the opposite. You break your promises, and on top of breaking your promises, you lie to us. So all of the upside that would potentially be there is negated by the negativity of the liars that happen to be in power. So I just want to ask you, which app would you download? And I'll show you the difference between the marketing. Would you download the DIA app or the MyGov app?
Why do you do this to me?
Because that's how fucking stupid the Australian government is. And I use cuss language and harsh language there because the Australian government are just run by morons. And those bureaucrats on display earlier shows you how stupid they are. If the Australian government wanted everybody to download an app, wouldn't you create a slick marketing campaign like that showing you how good it was? Give it a really nice name. You know, the name DIA doesn't really mean, maybe it means something in Ukrainian, I don't know. But to me,
it means action. It means
action. Well, action. Yeah, action. Have you got the action app? Yeah, I'd love. What's the action app? That sounds awesome. You know, even that has a better marketing connotation in a translation. But the word DIA is like soft. It's easy to say. It's single DIA. You know, it's like 1.5 syllables. It rolls off my tongue, and it has no negative connotation. The Australian government has got MyGov, where I've got ATO, I've got Centrelink, I've got Medicare, and a series of other things that are there. But the Australian government is so clunky and clumsy compared to what that DIA thing was. That DIA thing has everything that the Australian government could possibly want. It's a developer's wet dream, and it's Klaus Schwab's wet dream to make that happen for himself. But it just highlights the ineptitude and stupidity of the government bureaucrats that are in charge here. If they were serious about aggregating all of the services, why wouldn't you put it into a place that actually made it feel a little bit better, and it spiked feelings of, you know, positivity, of simplicity, invisibility? It's not a big deal. Have you got it? Just put your driver's license on there, man. Get your passport in there. You can go across the borders like that. It's so easy. Get your vaccination passport in there as well, by the way, and make sure that you don't say anything wrong, because your credit score will be in there. If your credit score's shit, you won't be able to buy steak tonight. And you might not be able to buy fuel for your car either.
You know, it is worth pointing out that two of the largest sponsors of the DIA app are Google and Visa.
Google and what, sorry? I was laughing.
And Visa.
Of course it is.
And of course, they're...
Why wouldn't it be?
And they're two of the primary members of the WEF. So, you know,
it's a giant circle jerk, man.
Funny how that works. And his whole bit about convenience is, well, listen, yeah, it might be convenient for consumers in a lot of ways, but it's even more convenient for the government. Because,
you know what my favorite word in all of it is? Invisible.
Oh, yeah.
So I look at, I've just been in these meetings before, right? You're sitting around a boardroom, you know, I remember sitting in the boardroom at Coke headquarters here in Sydney, and they've got all these Coke machines, and they had this machine there that they trialed. It was the most incredible thing you've ever seen. So you've had a frozen Coke before, and you've had a drink of normal Coke before. They had this machine that what it would do is it would almost freeze the Coke. So it was like a frozen Coke, but it was the most delicious Coke you've ever had in your life. And it was like a trial that they had with this machine. And you go in there and all the Coke executives are like, hey, have you had one of these? Check this out. And they press the button, they give it to you, and you're like, oh my God, that's like 10 times better than you've ever had. It's something to do with the temperature and the taste buds in your mouth and that, and all the science of what they do. It's actually really cool. So these Ukrainians are sitting around in a boardroom like that with all this expensive gear. It's funded by the government. They got all this gear, this beautiful offices, all of this. All right, we've got to come up with 3 keywords. Let's put them up on the whiteboard. Ed, what have you got? You've got convenience, simple, fun, easy, helpful. And then someone said, invisible. You don't even know it's there. They're like, yeah, that's a good one. Invisible to you. It's invisible to you. But the contradiction is that everything, 100% of everything you do is now visible to the government.
Yep.
It's the ultimate contradiction. Like, what?
Yep.
And what they're doing is they're taking you for a fool.
Oh yes. Well, they're taking everyone who goes along with these digital IDs or this new digital coin that we have coming. Anybody, you are a fool. Now, unfortunately, a lot of stuff is probably going to be unavoidable. If you want to live your life,
we're going to have to live in society, right?
Yeah.
Did you see the interview I sent to you yesterday with Daniela Carbone and Edward Griffin? You mustn't have seen it because you'd know straight away if you saw it. So, ladies and gentlemen, G. Edward Griffin is the fellow who wrote The Creature from Jekyll Island. And everything that Ed and I talk about really comes from that book. And it highlights how central banks occurred, how the Federal Reserve occurred, how the Federal Reserve perpetuates war, how it should be completely abolished, and how it's actually destroyed the financial system as we know it. And the Fed are the ones responsible for the destruction of our society financially. They're going to be the ones responsible for the collapse of society. And G. Edward Griffin wrote the book The Creature from Jekyll Island because the Federal Reserve was created on Jekyll Island, and he called it a creature because it developed as like a monster, right, that created all this. So, and it's a great title. Anyway, he's 93, I want to say he's 93 years old, I think, don't quote me there. So he's on this interview with Daniela Carbone. There's a two-part interview, half an hour each. And I watched the first part of it yesterday, and he was saying, because she's asking him about the central bank digital currencies, and the way he describes it, he says, have you ever been out on your front lawn and you look at your front lawn and one day there's it's just normal, it's just grass, right? And then overnight there's a little bit of rain, you come out in the front lawn and all of a sudden there's all these mushrooms on your grass. He said, those mushrooms, the spores of those mushrooms were just hiding behind the surface the whole time. All you needed was the right conditions, the right amount of water, the right amount of humidity, the right amount of heat in the air, and then pop, they all pop up and they're there. It's like, wow, I didn't know that was all under the surface the whole time. And he said this central bank digital currency has been there for years. And to your point, Ed, you said this DIA app kicked off in 2017. It really got momentum in 2019 and the war brought it to life quickly. So that was below the surface the whole time. And now these things are starting to come up into the mainstream. We can see all of those things. And so Danielle's going, okay, cool. So what is your view of this? Where do you think central bank digital currencies are going? You kind of got to listen to this guy because his whole entire life, he's been part of this financial system and a commentator on all of these things. He wrote that book, he wrote some other books, and he's known for this. I'm sure he'd want to be remembered for other things in his life, like being a dad, a granddad, a great-granddad, and all of those things, not just the author of that book, but that's probably the biggest thing that he's done in his life, and that's what he is known for. So he says that when we move to a credit-based system, you'll move not necessarily to a you've got a lot of money in your bank, right, because you're a successful entrepreneur or you're a really successful business, or you've got no money in your bank because you're a homeless drug addict. There's different versions of different people, and then there's everybody else in between, right? So he's saying that type of class won't exist anymore because we'll move to a credit-based system. It'll move to more like a rank-based system. So he said, think about it like a military rank structure where you're just a private soldier. The private soldier doesn't really get that much money. He gets a bit of money, enough to kind of live and eat and kind of survive, but the state provides everything for the digger. The state provides clothes that he can wear, free medical, free dental, a place to sleep, and all the food that he wants 3 times a day. And everything you need is provided for you. Now, as you move through the ranks, you become a corporal or you become a sergeant. Now you start to have your own family. You might live off base, and the government is really good to you, and then they pay for your housing as well. And then they look after your wife as well. They do some things there as well. And as you move through the ranks, you kind of go up into the officer ranks. The officers have better pay and conditions, and now they have more authority. And he was saying that central bank digital currencies in a credit-based system may move to a rank-based system like that. And so when you show your phone, someone scans the QR code and they, oh shit, this guy's like a colonel, or this woman here is like a general. Oh my God, we better treat her like a celebrity. And because she has that rank, and the amount of credits that you have in your account is equivalent to the rank that you have, which is equivalent to how much you contribute to society, meaning how many people do you employ, what services do you provide, what do you do. And it's a really interesting way of looking at the way society may go and may move to. He may be completely wrong, and I don't agree with any of it at all, like the system that he's kind of proposing, but that's where he seems to think that it might go. But he doesn't know as well at the same time. But he said the people that are sitting around in Davos and WEF and all of these idiots trying to control the world and have a one world government, that would be the most logical way to do it. And they've already wargamed all of this, all of it. They already know how it's going to play out. We're just speculating here.
Yeah, well, what he was describing, of course, is the social credit system, which they do have in China.
And based on rank. Yeah, and that's how, in practical application, that's how he said it would work.
I mean, you could be a neurosurgeon, but if you don't have the right political...
or you got a big mouth like Andrew Tate.
You got a big mouth. Yeah, the plumber might have a larger credit score than you.
And a higher rank because he provides more services and helps more people.
Yeah, so... there's so much to say on this topic, man. We could spend so much time on this. I want to circle back a little bit to, one of the features that they were touting in all these videos I was watching in all my research was the fact that was the role that DIA was playing in the Ukrainian war, and how this app was being used to report on missile attacks and position of where collaborators were and where the minefields were. And it has been apparently, if you believe them, it's been instrumental in the intelligence report in the execution.
Well, that's
of
awesome.
The war.
That's all the upside of it, right? They're all the good things, but that's cancelled out by all the bad things. Yeah. I see here, Paulie in the chat says it's all convenient for them. Yeah, and then they say as well that Zelensky was recruited by Klaus Schwab before the war. I didn't know that, but there you go. So, and all the upside of what you were talking about, no doubt that's an intelligence goldmine for the generals and the planners that are running the war. But on the other side of the war, this will end eventually. It has negativity, and if one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. So if I'm reporting on collaborators that are in my town, those people are collaborating with the enemy because they believe they're not the enemy. They believe that you're the enemy. That's why they're collaborating with your enemy. So you got to look at it. It's all a matter of perspective.
Yeah, but it's being touted as a huge success, and therefore, maybe we should be looking at it, and maybe we should be looking at it. Estonia, and I actually did know this about Estonia. Estonia has been very tech friendly for a long time. Apparently, if you go to Tallinn, in Estonia, like the internet is like unbelievably fast. The Wi-Fi is incredible. For some reason, Estonia, it's a popular place for nomads, for digital nomads.
It's a tech hub. Yeah,
it's a tech hub, right? And they have and in the clip there, the gentleman said, "Yeah, we have our elections all figured out. Everything's done online. Our elections are done online." So the
the party that we say is going to win is going to win, irrespective of your stupid votes or your digital IDs. And we'll show you. Look here. It's a Photoshop picture.
See, you can't argue. There's no corruption here. You can't possibly corrupt our elections. But these digital IDs are already lying in the weeds. To your point, they're ready to go. And we've been talking many times, I've said many times, that I believe that a World War III has to happen. Now, a World War III has already been underway, economically speaking, throughout the world. But we need some major global catastrophe to act as an excuse to implement these dramatic new policies, like a CBDC.
That's the WEF saying that there's going to be a massive cyber attack that will change everything, right? And that's what they're exercising for and planning for. And fair enough, that is definitely a real possibility that could happen at any point, but the only way that can really happen is with a government actor, North Korea, China, the usual suspects that would cause something like that. But doing something like that is going to destroy them in the process as well. So to your point, World War III kind of negates all of that, and it actually forces all of that. That's why these people are so dangerous. That's why you should care about it, ladies and gentlemen, is because these people would be willing to take us all the way up to the edge of nuclear war and stare over into the abyss of it and go over the edge. There's a really good movie coming out in the next couple of weeks. I think it's next month it comes out, called Oppenheimer. And I'll find the trailer and put it in the show notes. You need to look at that, because that is what, when you see something like that on the big screen, even when you see it on the trailer, it'll give you goosebumps and think, man, we're on the precipice of nuclear war right now. And if that happens at scale in our societies, it's good, because it shows the scale of destruction and what these weapons actually do. And you're seeing something from the 1930s and 1940s, which is nothing compared to what we've got today. What we've got today is 100 times worse than what they've ever actually tested or tried. It's much, much worse what we've got today. And it will highlight the craziness of these WEF types when they're looking over the edge, staring into the abyss, showing that actually this is what we're facing. And that's I believe you're 100% right, Ed. That's what they're going to do. They're going to take us all the way to the edge, maybe not to a nuclear war, but certainly to World War III. And that's going to be the thing that tips the scales and gets us across.
Well, yeah, they've got to do something dramatic. They've got to have like a World War II type, social effort, a group effort, where people are willing to accept things for the common good. Yeah, I don't like the idea of going on a CBDC, but the market just crashed 50% in a day, and this is our way out. This is
how we're going to preserve our wealth.
Right. If we want to survive, if I want to be able to buy some milk, I've got to get on that digital ID, and I got to work on my social credit score. It's just the way it is. Look
at you capitulating before it's even happened.
Yeah.
I need toilet paper, man.
And I keep it at 18 months.
I'm all in, baby. You're only going to resist for 18 months. That's it. You can wipe your ass for 18 months, and then I'm coming over to your side. I've seen the light.
That's going to be a very valuable barter item.
There it is. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on The Unspoken Truth today. We've been going for 90 minutes, and this is what we're all about. Make sure you head on over to your favorite podcasting app and download the show. Make sure you subscribe over there so you've got some unspoken truth in your ears all the time. We're over on Twitter and Telegram, and we've also got a backup channel on Rumble. Thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to doing another one tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow, Ed. Bye for now, mate.
Bye, Bobby.